In terms of going after enforcement of digital asset owners, there's two major strategies that the IRS uses. One is, as you can all understand, is audits. The other approach is what we're seeing more of, which is criminal enforcement. The primary way they determine who to audit is if you don't report as much income on your tax return as they know about. Okay. So if you don't file a tax return and they know you have enough income, then they're going to start asking questions. They might come after you either with letters or, the guys with the guns. How does the IRS know how much income you make, particularly for crypto exchanges and brokerages and stuff like that? This is true for people that sell online and things like that. And they're lowering that threshold down to 600. So this will bombard the IRS with a whole slew of these 1099s. Again, more information. Do they need that level of detail? I mean, $600, I mean, good grief, $600 is a really low number. Just to put a little more clearly, this is not any payment of $600. This is if you have received in the course of a whole year $600. So, it's not a matter of structuring your transactions to all be less than 600. 600 is could be
Yes.
anything, right? This
Yeah.
law was supposed to go into effect this year. That means this January you'd be receiving these low dollar 1099s, but they postponed it until next year. The other approach is what we're seeing more of, which is criminal enforcement, where with criminal enforcement, all they have to do is show that you didn't report your crypto income. But this is not a matter of I reported 90%, but I didn't report 100%. It's like they're generally going after people who are not filing a tax return at all. There's a lot of those in the crypto space. Or they filed their tax return, but they omitted all the crypto income. So two of those scenarios, hiders and non-filers. So with criminal enforcement, all they have to do is show that you didn't report some income, and then they turn it over to the Department of Justice, and the lawyers contact you, and they inform you that they're going to indict you for tax evasion or tax fraud, either one. The beginning charge is $250,000 plus 3 to 5 years in prison per year that this infraction happens. So that's where the plea bargaining starts. It's a much cheaper route for the IRS to do enforcement because they don't have to go through the ordeal of a audit and arguing over what the correct amount of gain is. They just have to prove you didn't report it, and the threshold they have to meet is $10,000. I have a client to whom this happened, and this would be good for everyone to hear. This client had received Bitcoin from a private exchange from someone else. These Bitcoin had never been on a public exchange. He held them on a private wallet. He didn't report it on his tax return. One day, two IRS agents, the ones with the badges and the guns on their hips, showed up at his door at his house. His wife answered it, and they said they wanted to see him down at the office. So he brought a couple lawyers. They talked to the IRS agents, and they said after the conversation, we're still investigating you. And what happened was that they had discovered his Bitcoin address. They dusted his Bitcoin wallet with thousands of Satoshis. And every time he makes any transaction from that wallet, these Satoshis go along with it. And so it's trackable for them. And by that means, it's very inexpensive. Once they knew the wallet address, they could track where you're moving the money to. And they were able to prove it. And then he got the call from the lawyers and they informed him of it. He went to a couple of tax attorneys and they said, your best hope is a nice lawyer who will do a plea bargain with you because you have no hope. And he went to two senior lawyers. And they told him this. And ultimately he went to prison and he had to pay all his taxes for the years that he hid. Plus he had penalties, as I mentioned, of roughly $250,000 plus, time in jail. And the worst thing about that type of enforcement, which is everybody should be aware of, that's a felony. While you might serve just a year or less in prison, you're a felon for the rest of your life. And he made a statement which is just compelling. He said, Clinton, if I get pulled over for speeding and the policeman takes my driver's license and he sees that I'm a felon, the chances I get off with a warning are pretty low. And it affects all the rest of your life. It'll lock you out of certain careers and professions, the financial industry, any industry where there's a top secret clearance, military industry, really a lifelong effect. This is the type of thing the IRS is going after. So they're going to spend this money on the criminal enforcement. In August of last year, Congress and the White House approved a funding of an additional $80 billion on top of the regular budget for the IRS. Of the 80 billion, and this is written into the law, 46 billion is specifically earmarked for enforcement activities on digital asset owners to get them into compliance. That is 4 times the annual budget of the FBI. So this is a massive investment. The 87,000 agents is a number that came out early last year. It's not exactly what's going to happen, but the commissioner did say that they would get an additional 4,800 enforcement officers. This would basically triple the size of the criminal enforcement group. The Department of Justice has hired another 150 lawyers just to support the criminal enforcement of this. So this is big, really, really big. Going after digital asset holders is the number one enforcement priority for the IRS for the next 7 years. Let me say this. The IRS has additional information about who has cryptocurrencies. They have systematically over the last several years filed summonses and used other mechanisms that aren't public to obtain information from exchanges about US account holders. They may not necessarily know from that exchange that it's you, but they know you're operating out of a US IP address. They know these things, and then they can run programs that'll connect these. They can say, "Oh yeah, this is Liam. He's used that address, and it looks like from that address we can just scan through. It looks like he generated proceeds or sales of $500,000. He's kind of a high frequency trader. Did he report that on his tax return? Oh no, over here Liam just said he had 100,000 of income only from his wages, his W-2. And so that is what triggers the IRS and selects you for an audit. And then once they select you, they'll decide if it's going to be a paper correspondence audit, if you're going to talk to a real auditor, or a referral to criminal investigation. Now they know about pretty much all the US exchanges. They have that data. If you deal on a US exchange, they know about it, and just assume that they know who you are. If you're on foreign exchanges, they can make some connections. They're putting a lot of squeeze on certain foreign exchanges to divulge information, to apply the FATCA laws. People pay you money on PayPal. Somebody buys your car and they send you $2,000 on PayPal. PayPal's going to report that to the IRS and treat it as income. So you're going to have to, on your tax return, explain why that $2,000 shouldn't be taxed, that it's actually a loss. That drags the average taxpayer into a bigger burden of having to defend more things in his tax return. There's more detail to apply. And tax, in the US, that's just a massive burden. It's just excessive. There's other ways to do it, but I'm not sure that's the best way.
The Clinton Donnelly Show, where we explore how taxation and regulations of cryptocurrencies affect your daily life as an investor. Clinton has a law degree in international financial regulation. He is an enrolled agent and certified as a cryptocurrency anti-financial crime specialist. He has clients in 71 countries. He is one of the top experts in crypto taxation in the US. This show is sponsored by CryptoTaxAudit.com, the income tax experts for US crypto investors. Are you frustrated with using online crypto tax services to calculate capital gains? Are you a high-frequency trader, DeFi, NFT, play-to-earn, or whale investor? Nothing is too complicated for the experts at CryptoTaxAudit.com. Are you frustrated that your accountant doesn't understand crypto taxes? Crypto Tax Audit uses a proven, bulletproof crypto tax return methodology to prepare a tax return that doesn't attract the attention of the IRS. Crypto Tax Audit also offers an exclusive audit defense membership service. It's like car insurance for your tax return. If your return gets selected for an audit of crypto reporting, they will defend you at no additional charge for the entire life of the audit. No one offers anything like audit defense